I remember the moment like a live wire. My chest tightened, my stomach dropped, and every single stupid memory of them replayed in full color. I wanted to explode. I wanted everyone to know the truth right then and there. Instead, I did something small and strange. I sat down, put my phone face down, and breathed until my heartbeat slowed. When I tell this part, it helps to be blunt. I was furious, embarrassed, and sick to my stomach all at once. It felt like someone had signed my name to a story I never agreed to. The urge to retaliate was loud and convincing. I pictured calling people out, leaking messages, and making them lose friends. I imagined the satisfaction of watching them squirm. But underneath that imagined satisfaction was a heavier feeling I could not ignore. The worry that whatever I did in that hot, bright moment would make things worse for me later. So I named it out loud. I said, I am angry, I am hurt. I want to lash out, but I am scared of regretting it. Saying it turned the heat into something I could hold. It did not make the feelings disappear, but it put them in a place where I could look at them, like objects on a table instead of a tidal wave taking me under. I pulled out my phone again, not to text anyone, but to type 3 sentences into a note. What happened, how I felt, and one rule I promised myself. No messages for at least 48 hours. Writing it down made the promise real. During those first hours, I used tiny tools to buy myself distance. I walked until my legs were sore, because movement makes a different kind of thinking possible. I turned off social media notifications so every new ping would not pull me back into that hot loop. When the emotions sloshed up again, I used a breathing exercise. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 6 counts out. It sounds simple, and it is, but slowing my breath slowed the rest of me. When I could, I told one trusted person exactly what happened and how it felt, not to recruit them into drama, but to get a steady voice in the room with me. That person's role was not to fix anything. Their role was to remind me who I was when I was not furious. Naming the feelings and pausing is not about bottling emotion or pretending you are fine. It is about refusing to let emotion run the show. In the days after I gave myself that pause, I noticed 2 things. First, my decisions came from a clearer place. The requests I made were calm and specific. The boundaries I set were practical instead of performative. Second, whatever drama they tried to manufacture lost its power because I no longer reacted on impulse. Naming the feeling and waiting did not erase what was done to me. What it did was give me back the authorship of my story. It kept me out of the things I would later regret, and it left room to choose a response that actually helped me move forward. When the whispers started to pile up, I nearly convinced myself that staying quiet was the brave thing to do. It took one small, scary moment to realize silence felt more dangerous than speaking up. Not because I needed to shout back, but because I needed to protect myself. I began by treating the situation like anything else that feels risky. I made a plan. First, I limited how they could reach me. I blocked both of them on my main social accounts and removed a bunch of mutuals who were clearly sharing their side. I changed passwords on accounts I thought could be compromised. Those moves felt a little petty at first, but they gave me breathing room. The goal wasn't to punish. It was to cut off low-effort attacks and to stop seeing their manufactured version of me on repeat. Next, I set firm social boundaries. I decided I would not meet either of them alone. If I needed to collect something or talk, it would be in a public place with witnesses, a school counselor's office, a busy coffee shop during the day, or with a trusted adult present. When someone is trying to provoke you, private encounters are where things escalate. Public settings keep everyone more measured and give you immediate options to leave. I also rehearsed short, unemotional lines to use if they tried to engage me. Saying something like, "I'm not discussing this," or, "If you have something to return, arrange a time with an adult," felt boring on purpose. Boring lines are hard to twist into gossip. I practiced them until I could speak them without the heat in my voice. That made it easier to enforce my rules without getting dragged back into drama. When their messages crossed into harassment, threats, repeated tagging, or showing up where I was, I documented everything. Screenshots, timestamps, and notes about who saw what became a small but powerful file. I kept copies on my phone and backed them up to cloud storage. Documentation isn't about revenge. It's about creating a record you can show a counselor, school official, or, if necessary, the police. It turns feelings into facts. I also involved responsible adults early. I told my parents and one teacher what was happening. They didn't try to solve it for me. They helped me think through options. If your school has an advisor, counselor, or dean, bring them into the loop. Schools have policies about harassment and gossip. Using those systems isn't tattling. It's using the structures that exist to keep students safe. Finally, I took care of myself around other people. I told a small circle of friends what was true and what I wanted them to do if asked about the situation. Don't amplify rumors, point people to facts if needed, and be honest if they didn't know. That limited the rumor mill while giving my friends a clear role that didn't make them uncomfortable. Prioritizing safety and boundaries isn't about proving who's right. It's about reducing opportunities for harm and giving yourself control back. When you treat the problem like something to be managed, with clear rules, witnesses, and documentation, it stops feeling like a personal failing and starts feeling like a challenge you can meet without becoming someone you won't be proud of later. The day I decided to stop second-guessing myself and start saving proof was the day everything shifted. Until then, I had been treating what they said like smoke, hard to grab, easier to ignore. But when the lies started spreading faster than I could correct them, I realized I needed something more solid than my word against theirs. So I began collecting evidence quietly, without emotion. Screenshots became my first line of defense. Whenever I saw a story post, a message, or even a comment that hinted at my name, I saved it. I didn't engage, I didn't reply, I just documented. If a friend sent me a screenshot, I thanked them and stored it in a folder labeled "For Records." The name wasn't dramatic. It reminded me that this wasn't revenge material. It was documentation. At first it felt strange, like I was overreacting, but saving proof gave me peace of mind. Every time I got new information, I didn't spiral. I just saved it. I kept track of dates and times. I made notes about who told me what and when. The goal wasn't to build a case for war. It was to create a paper trail that could speak for itself if things ever went too far. Gossip fades in memory, but screenshots don't. Then there were the gifts. The things I had bought with my own money when I still trusted them. Jewelry, a hoodie, a custom keychain. Small things, but they meant something. Now, after everything they said, I couldn't stand the thought of them keeping what represented good memories turned sour. So I started looking for receipts and photos that could prove ownership. It might sound excessive, but it helps to have proof when asking for personal property back. People lie. Proof doesn't. I also kept a log of every message exchanged between us after the breakup, even the ones that seemed harmless. Because sometimes when people are trying to twist your story, the most ordinary message can prove the opposite of what they're claiming. If they said I was obsessed, a history of ignored texts from them told the truth better than any argument could. And just as important as gathering evidence was keeping it safe. I backed everything up to a secure cloud account and a private drive. No shared devices, no screenshots saved in plain sight. When emotions run high, people snoop, accounts get accessed, and things get deleted. Protecting the evidence meant protecting my peace. The process of collecting proof taught me something about power. It isn't about fighting louder. It's about being prepared. It's about knowing that if anyone crosses a line, you have facts, not feelings, on your side. When you have evidence, you don't have to beg people to believe you. You can just show them the truth. And maybe the most important part? Once I had everything saved, I didn't feel desperate to use it. Knowing I could defend myself if needed was enough. It replaced the urge for revenge with something steadier. Confidence. That's the quiet kind of power most people never expect you to have. Proof that you don't need to destroy someone to protect yourself. When I finally decided to ask for the things I'd given them back, I treated it like a small legal task instead of a drama scene. That mindset change made all the difference. It kept my tone calm, my expectations realistic, and my actions useful. I started by making a clear list of what I wanted returned and why. Not that jacket, but green hoodie with white logo I bought at the mall on May 12th, receipt attached. Not emotional language, just identifiers. Item, purchase date, approximate value, and any proof I had, like a photo or receipt. That makes it harder for the other person to argue, and easier for anyone mediating to understand what you're asking for. Next, I drafted a short written request. A text or email is best, because it creates a paper trail. But a direct message on the app they use can work too, if it's the only way you can reach them. The message should be brief, factual, and include a deadline. For example, "Hi, I'd like the hoodie and the custom keychain I gave you last year returned. I can pick them up on Saturday, June 14th, or you can drop them off at the school office by the end of the week. If that doesn't work, let me know another time by Tuesday. Thanks." Notice what this does. It names the items, offers a reasonable pickup option, and sets a clear deadline. It doesn't accuse, it doesn't demand public humiliation, and it doesn't invite argument. Keep copies of that message and any replies. If they don't respond, follow up once with the same polite tone and a firmer deadline. If they refuse or gaslight you, "You gave it to me, it's mine." Don't try to win an argument in chat. Instead, escalate in measured steps you're willing to take. That could mean asking a trusted mutual friend to mediate, contacting a parent or guardian to request assistance, or arranging for the school counselor to be the neutral pickup point. Neutral third parties remove the chance of a heated face-to-face and give you a witness. If the items are valuable and they refuse to return them after reasonable written requests, document every step. Save the messages, take screenshots, and make a short timeline of attempts to retrieve the property. That documentation is useful if you need to involve school officials, or in extreme cases, consider small claims court. Small claims is not dramatic. It's a practical way to recover the value of items when someone refuses to cooperate. When arranging pickups, prioritize safety. Public drop-off locations, school offices, or a parent meeting in a public place are smart choices. Never go alone to a secluded spot to retrieve property. Finally, aim for closure rather than vindication. Getting your things back is practical. Making the other person apologize is optional and often impossible. Keep the interaction short, factual, and focused on the outcome you can control, the return of your property, and the preservation of your dignity. That approach protects your time, your finances, and your peace of mind. And that's the practical win you actually need. When it came time to actually get my things back, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't walking into that situation alone. I'd seen too many confrontations turn into drama shows that only made things worse. I wanted this handled cleanly, with as little room for twisting the story as possible. So I made a plan that took emotion out of it and replaced it with structure. The first thing I did was choose who would be there. I picked someone neutral. Someone both sides knew and wouldn't see as a threat, a mutual friend who wasn't involved in the gossip. In some cases, a parent, older sibling, or school counselor can play that role too. The goal isn't to gang up on anyone. It's to keep everyone accountable. Having another person present keeps tempers in check and ensures there's a witness if anyone tries to lie later about what happened. Next, I decided where it would happen. Meeting in a public place is non-negotiable. It sends a quiet message. We're keeping this respectful. I chose somewhere open and ordinary. Not anyone's house, not behind the school, and definitely not at night. A coffee shop, a school office, or even the parking lot in daylight works. If they refused a public meeting, that was already a sign they weren't coming in good faith. And I'd have someone else handle it on my behalf instead. Before meeting, I gathered everything I needed. A small printed list of what was supposed to be returned, copies of the texts showing I had asked politely, and my phone charged in case I needed to record or take photos for proof of return. I didn't threaten to record them. I just made sure I was ready if something went sideways. Preparation made me feel grounded. I wasn't walking in hoping for closure. I was walking in to complete a task. When the day came, I reminded myself, this is not an argument. It's an exchange. If they started small talk or tried to bait me into a fight, I stayed polite but brief. I'm just here to get my stuff, that's all. Short, clear, and calm. No explanations, no insults, no sarcasm. That calmness irritated them more than anything I could have said because it showed they no longer had control over my emotions. Sometimes, situations like this end peacefully. Sometimes they don't. If they tried to start drama or refused to hand things over, I didn't push. I simply said, okay, then I'll handle it through another channel, and left. Walking away wasn't weakness. It was control, because every word said in anger would have become their next rumor. Silence, in moments like that, is protection. Afterward, I texted my witness a thank you, and kept all the messages in a safe folder. The interaction was over, and so was that chapter. Using a neutral third party and a public setting kept things from spiraling, but more importantly, it showed me something valuable. Real power doesn't come from getting the last word. It comes from handling chaos with calm precision. And the moment you stop reacting to their drama, you stop being part of their story. When I finally decided to confront them, I knew it couldn't be one of those emotional explosions I'd imagined in my head 100 times. I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction, the shaky voice, the angry tears, the moment they could twist to make me look crazy. If I were going to say something, it had to be controlled, short, and grounded in facts. No yelling, no name-calling, no long explanations, just clarity. Before anything, I sat down and wrote out what I actually wanted to say. At first, the list looked more like a rant than a plan. But once I reread it, I noticed only a few things really mattered. I wanted to make 3 points clear. I knew what they were saying about me. It wasn't true. I wasn't tolerating it anymore. Everything else, the pain, the backstory, the how could you questions, didn't need to be said. They already knew. I didn't need closure from people who thrived on chaos, so I turned those 3 points into a short script I could actually say out loud. Something like, I know what you've been telling people about me. I've seen the screenshots and heard from people directly. I'm not engaging in gossip, but I'm asking you to stop spreading lies. If it continues, I'll handle it formally. That's it. Simple, neutral, and backed by reality. I practiced it enough times that I could say it without my voice shaking. It sounds small, but rehearsal matters. When emotions run high, your brain scrambles for words. Practicing keeps you steady and prevents them from pulling you into a fight. When the moment came, I stuck to the plan. I met them in a public space, not some back hallway or private message thread. I didn't let them steer the conversation. When they tried to deflect, "You're overreacting. People are just talking. You're so dramatic." I didn't argue. I repeated, "I've already said what I needed to say." It was my version of hanging up the phone mid-drama, but in person. The key is understanding that a confrontation isn't about convincing them to see your side. People who lie or manipulate rarely admit they're wrong. It's about making it known, calmly and clearly, that you're aware and that there will be boundaries moving forward. Once that message is delivered, continuing the conversation only feeds their need for attention. Afterward, I felt lighter than I expected. I didn't walk away triumphant. I walked away done. There's power in not matching their energy. When you stay calm, they lose the performance they were counting on. You become the one in control of the story. Not because you shouted the loudest, but because you didn't let them rewrite your truth. Confronting someone with a script instead of emotion isn't weakness. It's a strategy. It means you value your peace more than the argument. It means you refuse to let someone drag you down to their level. And sometimes the best way to win isn't to fight harder. It's to stop giving them anything to fight with. The hardest part about dealing with lies isn't hearing them. It's knowing how to respond without falling into the trap of looking like the villain in your own defense. When I realized people were starting to believe the stories my ex and his cousin were spreading, my first instinct was to post everything online. Screenshots, voice messages, all of it. I wanted everyone to see the truth. But then I remembered something a friend told me once. The louder you try to prove something, the more it sounds like you're guilty. That line stuck with me. I didn't want to play their game. I wanted to end it. So I took a breath and thought about what correcting the record really meant. It wasn't about winning the crowd. It was about reclaiming my reputation in a smart, measured way. I started by identifying who actually mattered. Not every random person at school or every follower on my social media deserved an explanation. Only a few people, my close friends, teachers who might have heard something, and the ones directly involved, needed clarity. I focused on them. When I talked to those people, I didn't give long, emotional speeches. I kept it short and factual. "Hey, I heard there's been some talk about me cheating or messaging people while I was in that relationship. That's not true. I have proof if it ever comes up again, but I'm not here to argue. I just wanted to clear that up. Then I'd move on. I didn't over-explain, and I didn't drag the other names into it. People respect composure more than chaos. On social media, I handled it differently. I didn't post cryptic stories or vague quotes about fake people. That kind of thing only feeds curiosity. Instead, I quietly adjusted privacy settings, removed toxic mutuals, and started using my platforms more intentionally. I posted about normal things, school, hobbies, and little wins. By returning to my usual self, I reminded people who I actually was, not who they said I was. Over time, that normalcy spoke louder than any rant ever could. Still, I had to accept something important. Not everyone would believe me. Some people prefer drama over truth. That used to bother me. But then I realized those people weren't worth chasing. If someone wants to see you as a villain, they will, no matter what you say. The best thing you can do is make sure the people who truly matter know the facts and let time handle the rest. Lies have short legs. They don't travel far when the truth stays consistent. Correcting the record calmly taught me a kind of emotional discipline I didn't know I had. It reminded me that silence isn't weakness. It's a strategy when used right. Every time I refused to take the bait, every time I chose facts over feelings, I took a little of my power back. And slowly people started to notice. The rumors faded. Not because I screamed louder, but because I stayed steady long enough for the truth to catch up. The moment I realized how much of my life they could still access, I felt exposed. Not just emotionally, but digitally. They still followed my alt accounts, had old passwords, and even mutual friends who casually shared my posts in group chats. It hit me that part of keeping my peace wasn't just emotional distance. It was protecting my privacy. They couldn't twist what they couldn't see. The first step was cleaning house. I went through my followers list like I was pruning a garden. Anyone I didn't trust, anyone who seemed to be screenshotting or gossiping, was quietly removed. I didn't announce it, didn't block to make a statement, just unfollowed or restricted access. It wasn't about revenge. It was about control. I stopped giving people free tickets to my life. Next came passwords. I had used the same one across multiple accounts since middle school, and it scared me to think how easily it could be guessed. I changed every single one. Email, social media, even streaming accounts. I enabled two-factor authentication and updated recovery emails so they went to new, private accounts. That one move alone gave me immediate peace. No more wondering if someone was reading my messages or snooping through old DMs. Then I adjusted my social media settings. My posts went from public to friends only. Story replies? Restricted. Tagging permissions? Off. I stopped sharing real-time locations or photos that could reveal where I was. It wasn't paranoia, it was prevention. Too often people forget that gossip feeds on visibility. When they can't track your moves, they can't weaponize them. But digital privacy wasn't the only thing I had to guard. Emotional privacy mattered just as much. I realized that venting about the situation online, even vaguely, gave them power. Every post about fake people or outgrowing drama told them I was still paying attention. So I stopped. I let them wonder. Instead, I kept my real thoughts from my notes app, my journal, or trusted people in private conversations. What used to be long, angry rants turned into quiet reflections that helped me think clearly, instead of reacting emotionally. I also learned to separate peace from silence. Just because I wasn't speaking publicly didn't mean I was defeated. It meant I was strategic. There's something powerful about knowing things they don't. When you hold your own story close, they lose their ability to twist it. The last step was rebuilding my space online. I started sharing things that reflected who I was becoming, not what I was defending. Photos with genuine friends, school projects I was proud of, things that showed growth. Slowly, people's perception shifted from the girl in the drama to the one who's moved on. Privacy isn't about hiding. It's about choosing what's worth showing. Protecting both my digital and emotional privacy didn't make the rumors vanish overnight, but it made them irrelevant. The noise faded once I stopped giving it oxygen. And that's what peace really is. Not silence forced by fear, but quiet built by boundaries. When you're a teenager, you think adults only get involved when things are completely out of control, when there's a fight, a police report, or something physical. I used to think the same, but I learned the hard way that sometimes, waiting until things get that bad is what makes them spiral. There's nothing weak about using the proper channels. It's what smart people do when they've had enough. The first sign that things were escalating came when my name started showing up in group chats I wasn't even in. Friends would message me screenshots, lies layered on lies, half-truths, people laughing at my expense. Then came the DMs from random people asking if the rumors were true. It wasn't just annoying anymore. It was reputation damage. That's when I realized this wasn't just high school gossip. It was harassment, and I needed to treat it like that. I started with documentation. Every single thing, texts, messages, comments, stories, screenshots, got saved and dated. I kept them in a folder labeled evidence, not because I wanted to use them for revenge, but because I wanted a record in case someone tried to twist the story again. I even made short summaries after each incident. Who said what, where it happened, who saw it. It felt tedious at first, but later it made everything so much easier to explain when I brought it to an adult. The next step was finding the right person to talk to. I didn't want to sound like I was snitching, but I also didn't want to deal with this alone anymore. I started with the school counselor. I showed her the screenshots and explained what had been happening for months. The rumors, the fake stories, the harassment from both my ex and his cousin. She listened carefully, didn't interrupt, and told me that this kind of situation falls under the school's anti-bullying and harassment policy. That meant they had to take it seriously. Within a few days, she looped in the assistant principal. We met privately, and I handed over copies of my evidence. They asked me to document any further incidents and to avoid confrontation. The school then spoke to both of them separately. I don't know exactly what was said in those meetings, but the tone of everything shifted afterward. They stopped tagging me, stopped talking about me publicly, and the people around them got quieter too. It didn't erase what had happened, but it sent a message. There were consequences. In some cases, especially if threats or stalking are involved, going beyond the school might be necessary. That's when police reports or restraining orders come into play. But even if it doesn't get that far, talking to an adult you trust, a counselor, parent, or teacher, creates a paper trail that protects you. It also shows you're not the one stirring up drama. You're the one trying to end it responsibly. Taking this route taught me something that still sticks with me. Asking for help doesn't make you powerless. It makes you smart. People who spread lies rely on your silence, on you being too scared or embarrassed to speak up. The moment you start using proper channels, the game changes. It stops being gossip and it becomes accountability. And that's when you finally start to feel safe again. When the dust finally started to settle, I had to ask myself what I actually wanted out of all of this. An apology? Revenge? For everyone to see that I was right and they were wrong? Maybe at first. But after everything, the rumors, the late-night anxiety, the drama that seemed to never end, I realized what I really wanted was peace. Not silence, not pretending it never happened, but actual peace. A life where my name wasn't attached to chaos anymore. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to live in reaction to them anymore. I was done letting their words shape how I saw myself. Every time I replayed what they said or planned how I'd respond, it kept me tied to them. That realization stung because I had spent months trying to win something I didn't even want. The moment I stopped chasing validation, things started shifting. I turned my energy toward things that built me instead of broke me. School became my focus again. I poured myself into projects I'd neglected, applied for things I never thought I'd qualify for, and started hanging out with people who didn't feed off drama. The quiet felt strange at first. It's almost like my brain missed the noise, but eventually that quiet became the thing I craved most. It was peace earned, not handed. I also started writing again. Not rants or call-outs, but reflections on how it felt to lose people I thought would always be there. How anger can disguise itself as confidence, and how healing doesn't always look pretty. That writing turned into a kind of therapy, and over time I could see the difference between who I was before and who I was becoming. For the first time in a long time, I felt grounded in my own story, instead of the one they'd made up for me. Moving forward didn't mean pretending it never happened. I still had days when I thought about what they said, or wondered if people still whispered behind my back. But the difference was, it didn't control me anymore. Their words used to feel like permanent marks on my reputation. Now, they were just reminders of how far I'd come. I stopped trying to erase the past and started using it as a blueprint. Proof that I could survive being misunderstood and come out stronger for it. One of the most surprising parts of healing was how much power forgiveness held. Not for them, but for me. I didn't need to forgive what they did. I just had to forgive myself for how much it had affected me. For letting it take up space in my mind. For letting anger dictate my reactions. The moment I did that, I felt lighter. That's the kind of closure you can't get from anyone else. In the end, rebuilding my momentum wasn't a single act. It was a series of small choices. Choosing to focus on my goals instead of gossip. Choosing to spend time with people who bring calm instead of chaos. Choosing to see myself as more than a rumor. Those choices didn't just protect my peace. They defined who I became. The truth is, revenge fades, but self-respect doesn't. When you shift from proving your worth to protecting your peace, that's when you really win. Because nothing unsettles people who tried to ruin you more than watching you thrive anyway. Have you been through messy high school drama? Drop one practical thing you did that helped you take your power back. Legal, emotional, or logistical.